The crazy man decides to go to the internet of the site in order to find out and see these strange rumors, if these scary stories were spread elsewhere. He understands that it could be a dangerous job, frankly. He has not received a small statement of disclaimer. This can be dangerous for you and for everyone, so it's best not to go there. He just wants to watch this video for entertainment purposes, therefore he will go to random sites just for the purpose of seeing what it looks like. He has no bad intentions. He doesn't really want to buy anything. He doesn't intend to do strange things, Jim, actually. He just wants to see what you look like. Therefore, thousands of people, many people who have no knowledge of computers that have just been downloaded and bought gold to get there, find themselves on a page where there are many links. They click on a link in a completely random way and enter a simple chat window. They start a simple conversation with people who are discussing a lot of things there, and Jim innocently expresses himself. He's just having a simple conversation with the others. He doesn't do anything else. However, at the moment Jim is writing, a window appears on the camera showing a masked man sitting on a chair, and this image slowly turns black. I don't want to get into the details of the show, but some kind of scene change makes it look like the camera is Jim's own webcam. Jim starts watching what happens in the gym live. Everyone shoots themselves instead of him, and therefore Jim witnesses what happened there. After this experience, Jim decides to close the page, but it becomes impossible to close the site, although they try to. Click on the red cross. It doesn't work. He decides to turn off his computer, but that doesn't work either. Finally, he unplugs his computer and the events come to an end. Jim reacts in a scared way after what happened to him. However, over time, he forgets these events and moves on with his life. One day he comes across a letter from the mail. The letter is quite scary and alarming. Jim realizes that it is extremely creepy to encounter this kind of thing and thinks that he should never have gone to that site. However, there is a positive note to this story. Jim manages to get out of all these terrible events and moves on with his life. Going to gyms is one of Jim's best choices, and he does not face any negative consequences. A few years later, Jim has another area of interest and meets new people. He discovers a more positive and happy aspect of his life. The scary internet story is erased from his memory over time, and Jim focuses on the future. In the end, all these bad memories are left behind, and Jim continues to enjoy the good moments of his life. Pierre often spent his time in the internet world, doing furniture research. She was thinking about redecorating her own house and was inspired by furniture sellers on the internet. One day, he discovered an interesting story of a furniture dealer he had caught his eye on. This furniture dealer decided to find a once lost and valuable antique furniture. The furniture was of great value and should be included in his collection. However, it was not easy to determine the place where the furniture disappeared. The seller had started a research adventure to find this furniture by examining many different sources on the internet. While reading this story, Pierre was impressed by the seller's determination and research journey. He wanted to know the fate of the furniture, and this story inspired him. He decided to track down the furniture seller and started his own research adventure. By combining information from different sources on the internet, Pierre started browsing forums on the internet and contacting collectors of old furniture to get new information about furniture. This process was the beginning of a new era, in which he had a new goal and a purpose. Now he had a great passion, not only for collecting information, but also in the quest to find the missing furniture. As Pierre became more immersed in the story of the furniture dealer, he realized that his research had led him down a dark and mysterious path. The furniture seller was circulating among the stories that he had disappeared while tracking down the missing furniture. and had never been heard from again. While Pierre was following many different tracks and tips on the internet, he had come under the influence of a dark atmosphere. The disappearance of the furniture dealer almost drew him into a maze. He had fallen into a world full of incomprehensible messages, old maps and mysterious people. Finally, Pierre, following the last traces of the furniture dealer, arrived at an old and abandoned warehouse. In this warehouse, he encountered a terrible scene, which gave the impression that the furniture dealer had suddenly disappeared. The furniture seller's belongings were scattered on the floor, but he himself had disappeared without a trace. Pierre learned about the terrible fate of the furniture dealer and quickly moved away from the warehouse so as not to suffer a similar end to him. However, this experience left a lasting mark on her life, and she began to feel safer in the real world instead of the mysteries on the internet. The end of the story comes at a point when Pierre's internet research has led him into a terrible mystery, and he finally faces an inevitable fear in the real world. After this dark adventure, Pierre is now more cautious and has returned to the security of the real world. Jacques saw an ad for a car dealer online. The ad looked quite attractive, a low-priced car for sale by an old man. Jacques focused on this proposal in the hope of finding a suitable car for his son. However, the owner of the ad, Jackie Saint, was a man who didn't use the internet much, was a stranger to technology. Jackie, who was shy about communicating, did not think about signing up with a stranger. Although Jacques tried to convince Jackie in some way, he did not succeed due to the suspicious attitude of that old man. In the end, Jacques decided to go to an ancient and mysterious mansion from the only place that Jackie agreed to, namely, however. This time, the scary moments of the story begin when Jacques arrived in front of this large, old house. The mysterious atmosphere of this place immediately attracted his attention. The house was dark and eerie, as if it had jumped out of a horror movie. Jacques plucked up the courage to knock on the door, but there was silence in return. No one was opening the door, and Jacques began to get more and more angry. There were no lights on in the house, and silence reigned in the room. Suddenly, looking through the window, he saw that there was someone. But this person was in the form of a vague silhouette. Jacques kept knocking on the door, trying to make himself heard by shouting persistently. However, the silence offered him only an alarming reticence. Everything was normal, even though Jackie thought it was a little weird. However, suddenly, while strolling around the house, he discovered a bay window and decided to look in from here. However, the window was half open, and Jacques' attention was immediately drawn to the blinds next to the window. The blinds were half closed, and he had a feeling that something had entered. Still plucking up courage, Jacques, instead of knocking at the door, approached the bay window. But the window was half closed, and the sight terrified him. Looking through the window, Jacques saw the scene inside. Women and men in sexy underwear posing in sexy poses, sitting as if looking at him. But this scene was not completely real, and Jacques noticed, which he had not noticed before, that the blinds next to the bay window were covered with many mannequins. Jacques wanted to quickly put this strange and eerie moment behind him, so he decided to quickly inspect the house. He found, however, that the scene was only an illusion, and so he left it bewildered. Finally, Jacques and Jackie climbed up to where the landlord was, thinking that perhaps the problem might be on the upper floors. Upstairs, however, they made a shocking discovery. In the house, the person sitting was not actually a corpse, but it was a horrible lifeless piece of mannequin. As they walked around the house, Jacques and Jackie noticed that each room was part of another strange scene. This time, half-naked male and female mannequins were everywhere. However, this was not just the strangeness on the surface. Jacques and Jackie finally entered a room, which was much worse than anything they had seen in the whole house. The room resembled a real horror movie. It was filled with completely stuffed bodies that looked as if they had been awakened. However, these stuffed bodies were real, but realizing that they were not human bodies caused them to relax for a moment. There was no blood, bones, or organs in them. They were like carefully crafted puppets. Jacques and Jackie were faced with a terrifying and disgusting sight. They wanted to leave this terrible scene, but the room did not give way to them in any way. The exit door was closed and the window was covered with boards. Suddenly, someone sitting in the middle of the room started laughing hoarsely. Jacques and Jackie saw a door in the corner of the room. Although this door seemed to be helplessly closed, they approached with a last hope and tried to open the door. The door finally opened, and Jacques and Jackie started to run away from this terrible house. But when they came out, they noticed that the house had changed. Instead of the previous old and creepy house outside, they were in front of a monument. Jacques and Jackie experienced the shock of this extraordinary transformation with the terrible memories they left behind. Here is the end of the story. In front of a monument full of dark secrets, leaving behind a story full of horror and mystery. Goodbye. See you in other stories.